guys, it's Ch.3. Welcome back to another ClopFic readings of Apples and Magic. 13 to 12 more chapters to go on this. I'm going to be recording video games and shit now. I'm going to be posting them here. I don't care if you guys are going to stay around. I just need to be myself and just go with the flow of myself. Also, I'm not sure. I'm recording with a webcam. I'm not sure if you're going to see my face or not. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, let's hop right into it. Of Days Off, Chapter 3. A knock on the front door made Twilight's ears perk up and swivel towards the... A knock on the front door made Twilight's ears perk up and swivel towards it. Her attention to the essentials of equine curtain interrupted by the rap upon wood. Eagerly, Twilight got up and headed out to the foyer, her footsteps lightly echoing in the large chambered room. Usually, she would have let Spike answer the door while she continued reading, but she had invited Applejack to come over and hang out today, and as such, wanted to answer the door herself, since it was likely her. "I've got it, Spike," Twilight called out, before moments later reaching the door, looking back to see the little purple dragon head back to his room with his Action Hoof comic book still in claw. Action Hoof comic book still in claw. Gripping the handle in her magic, she opened the door to see the orange-coated mirror that she was proud to call her filly friend. "Hi, Applejack." Applejack stood on the threshold looking up at the grand majesty of the huge shining building that was the castle of friendship and Twilight's home. "I ain't never gonna get used to this, I swear," she said after putting down the mid-sized basket held in her muzzle before then looking down and meeting Twilight's eyes. "Hey there, Shug." Pretty sure that she was gonna say sugar and just get cut off. Twilight smiled, waving a hoof inside, to which Applejack went to pick up the basket, Twilight just noticing it. "So what you bring this time?" Twilight asked with a hint of mirth. Every time she went over to visit Applejack announced, or Applejack came over to visit her after they'd started dating, or went over there to get her and take her for a date. She always brought some goodie she or her Granny Smith made, whether it be cookies, muffins, or even tarts a few times. "Well, I guess you'll just have to wait and see," Applejack said with a smirk before then grabbing up the basket and stepping inside, heading towards the reading room that doubled as Twilight's bedroom, or it may as well with as much time as she spent there. Twilight hated the suspense when Applejack teased her, not telling her what she brought, instead leaving her guessing until they'd reach her room. Thankfully for Twilight, it was only a short trot and wait. As they arrived, Applejack set down the basket and nodded towards it, giving Twilight permission to look inside. Almost too eagerly, Twilight noted... Almost too eagerly, Twilight nearly tore the basket asunder in her over-eagerness, her magic very quickly parting the fabric of mystery to reveal apple walnut cookies. As if to reward her own patience, Twilight quickly grabbed up one of the cookies in her hooves, and after getting an affirming nod from Applejack, sunk her teeth into it. "Sweets from my Shug," Applejack cooed as Twilight bit into the cookie. "Sweets for my Shug," Applejack cooed as Twilight bit into the cookie, saying the same thing every time she presented a treat for her merry friend, with her latter quickly finding there were indeed raisins in them too. "Oh my gosh! Is have rations? Is have rations through?" Twilight exclaimed through a muffle of cookie. The mixture of spices. Was that nutmeg, cinnamon, and fruit quite the taste parade for her senses? "Yup, I know you like your raisins, so I tossed them in just for you," Applejack said, grabbing one of the cookies herself and taking a bite. Together they ate cookies in silence, having a number each before they finally started talking. "So how have you been?" "Fine," Applejack replied before noticing the upturned book on Twilight's bed. "The essentials of equine carding, huh?" Applejack asked, giving Twilight, whom currently had a whole cookie stuffed in her mouth, a smirk. "I thought you said you weren't studying on dating no more, and you were gonna play it by hoof." That's hard for Twilight. That's hard for Twilight, AJ, okay? "Caught," Twilight sighed. "Oh, you got me," Twilight said, holding her hooves up as if in surrender. "I give up. But Celestia, I'd never study on anything ever again." She continued to snort and smile, then escaping her, the roll of her eyes only adding onto just how serious she wasn't. "You know, there's a fee for studying what you ain't supposed to, right?" Applejack asked, getting a bit closer to Twilight, only a couple of feet away. Noticing AJ's proximity to her, Noticing Applejack's proximity to her, Twilight turned and looked to her, her cheeks still slightly bulging with sugary, baked, doughy goodness, and quickly gulping down what she had in her mouth. Before she knew what had happened, she was once more pinned to the bed as her muzzle was sharply met with Applejack, rubbing their muzzles together. Before finally meeting her lips, a bolt of lightning went down Twilight's spine as she felt slightly chapped lips on her own, feeling herself being so gently pinned against the bed, much the same way as she had been against the Nook's bench during the first kiss they shared, her wings unfurling beside her as they kissed. They continued kissing like that for a while, the soft wet smacks of their lips and quiet moans and sounds of pleasure, the only sounds in the room, the scent and taste of cookies and each other, the feel of soft fur or feathers on their hooves, flooding their senses. Applejack suddenly felt as she was starting to be rolled over, but retaliated, pushing herself a little harder on Twilight, as well as gripping a bit tighter with all her forehooves, only to suddenly find herself on her back beneath a smaller pony, a light tingle over her body. "Consarn it, Twilight, quit cheating with your magic," Applejack said as she once more being held down by her partner's spell, hearing the other giggling as she planted kisses all around her muzzle. "Well, you always start it, and I always finish it. Okay, well, you always start it, and I always finish it," Twilight exclaimed, having unceremoniously flopped atop Applejack, her lighter body not having quite the same dominating effect she was trying for, but nonetheless proved her point. Applejack was well and truly pinned. Fine, you proved your point. Let me up now," Applejack said helplessly, being held down by a smirking Alicorn and her magic, knowing she had no hope of escape outside of being let up. "Say I won." "Fine, you won. Now let me up." Having claimed her victory, Twilight released her telekinetic grasp on Applejack, the other more getting up and shaking off, replacing her Stetson on her head. "Geez, Twi," Applejack huffed, only to be met with the smirking face of her shitty friend. "Anyhow, you want to go do something instead of you just making out and cheating and wrestling all day?" Twilight simply exaggeratedly flopped on the bed, akin to what their friend Rarity might do, squirming a bit to get uncomfortable. "Nope, today's my day off. I've got nothing to do but lay around and read and hang out with you." "Oh boy, I'm just prancing in my horseshoes in anticipation." "Oh my, watching you reading a dusty old book all day," Applejack said, sarcastically getting off the bed and heading to the door. "Yeah, at least when I watch a movie or something instead." Twilight huffed again, getting into an upright laying position. "My books are not dusty, thank you very much. I keep my library very well dusted," and Twilight stopped as she heard Applejack snickering before getting that tangent up with a sigh. "Fine, I'll watch a stinking movie with you." Yes, they're getting along quite fine, thank you very much. Oh shit, fuck, don't put that away from me, hand, okay? Twilight reluctantly got off the bed and together they walked to the den. The walls there covered in pictures of Applejack, Twilight, and all of their other friends together and doing various activities, from visiting the park and having a picnic to being together at Caden's wedding to hanging out at Donut Joe's in Canterlot. As they settled on the couch, Twilight grabbed the remote, turning it on and putting a movie on. After the epic magic fights, which must have taken a lot of choreography to avoid the ponies getting hurt, came a romance scene between the main character, an overly buff Pegasus stallion, and a smaller Earth pony mare. It started out innocently enough, the two simply kissing and the mare rubbing on the stallion's wings as they embraced in thanks for him saving her from Prince Blackheart, a clear spoof of the real King Sombra, before it quickly escalated, the two ponies starting to grind at each other as they ended up on the bed. Is this a fucking porn? Applejack was beat red at this point, as was Twilight, but neither could look away as it escalated even more, with the stallion climbing on top of the mare as she lay on her back, moaning that she was in heat and begging him to "put your phone in me." The camera also conveniently focused behind them and between their legs as the TV turned off and both mares were now silently staring at the black screen, Twilight blushing especially deeply as she realized she'd unintentionally put on a semi-pornographic movie for them to watch. "Well, that was, interesting," Applejack said, realizing how hot and bothered the scene had made her, closing her legs too visibly hide her arousal, but knowing Twilight could likely smell it, just as she could smell her mare friend's own aroused scent. "Yes, yes it was," Twilight stammered out, glancing up the Hoof-Flick's title screen of the movie and realizing it was rated mature with violent and graphic sexual content. "Sorry about that, Applejack, I didn't even realize the rating." Applejack smirked at Twilight. I didn't think you were that kind of mirror, bringing out that kind of entertainment for friends, she teased lightly, making Twilight's face burn even hotter. It was an accident, Twilight said as she struggled to defend herself before hearing Applejack give a quiet chuckle. Don't worry, I ain't nothing I haven't seen on the farm. We do have animal husbandry after all, and boy do the sheep get loud and vocal when they're in rut and heat. Applejack said, seeing Twilight's tension reduced as she saw Applejack was right with her mistake, letting out a breath she didn't even know she was holding. Us apples ain't exactly prudes when it comes to sex, despite popular belief. Was it just Twilight, or did Applejack wink at her after she said that? So now what? I don't know, we could go back to your room and read, Applejack said, giving a suggestive look as she did. Or maybe you could watch a different movie. Twilight's stomach growled loudly, apparently bringing up a third option. She hadn't even eaten a meal today. Twilight, what? Spending too much time reading, it would seem. And apparently the multiple large cookies she ate earlier multiple large cookies she'd eaten earlier hadn't sated her. Or maybe we could go get something to eat, Twilight asked, giving out a sheepish smile. Applejack sighed, a small smile on her muzzle as she did. Don't you ever eat before I come and visit? She asked with a chuckle before heading towards the kitchen. Probably not. Twilight, wait, Twilight called out, trotting up to Applejack. You're my guest, and I'm supposed to cook for you, not the other way around. Applejack gave a gentle laugh before giving Twilight a kiss on the muzzle. It's alright, Shug. I can whip us something real fast. No offense, but you're not exactly the most apt in the kitchen, if you know what I mean. Twilight blushed a bit, pawing at the floor with a hoof. Come on, that was only the one time. Twilight, you nearly burnt down the kitchen while boiling water. Twilight winced before stepping outside and letting Applejack pass. Yeah, I know. Don't worry, you pretty little head about it. I'll be done in no time. Just go sit down for a spell. Sure enough, within 30 minutes, Applejack had emerged from the kitchen with 4 veggie tostadas, a side of Mexican-style rice on the side of each plate. She invited Twilight to come sit at her long, formal dining table, but instead was ushered to the much smaller, less formal dining table Twilight had set up in the next room for her own personal meals and her friends when she invited them over. They ate quietly for a while before something that Twilight had been thinking about for a while. A matter of fact, since their first date was finally voiced. Hey Applejack, you said you're not prude about sex, right? Nah, I can't say I am. So why did you say no when I asked you at the hill? Applejack said, knowing this may come up and preparing for it. Twilight, ain't that I didn't want to make love with you. It's just, well, you ain't, you were drunk and I didn't know if you were truly ready for that with me, she explained before giving Twilight a kiss on the head, pulling away and smiling softly. I promise whenever you're ready, I'll be ready too. I thought you didn't find me attractive or something, Twilight said, a bit of hurt in her voice. Applejack quickly gave a shake of the head, as well as a kiss on the side of her muzzle. Applejack promptly put down her tostada and reached over to Twilight, lifting her chin with a hoof and having her look in her eyes. Twilight, you're a very beautiful mare, and I would be proud to make love with you, but I just couldn't then, and I knew you weren't yourself, and I didn't want a chance taking advantage of you like that. Twilight smiled, and meeting her lips to Applejack's, giving her a soft kiss and holding it for a while before returning to her meal. I understand, AJ. Thanks for caring about me. No probs, sugar, Applejack said. About to take another bite before hearing one last thing from Twilight. I'm not drunk now. Would you be willing to have sex now? Applejack's sister hit the plate with a clink. She looked over to Twilight only to see a worried expression on her face in reaction to how Applejack had acted to her question. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked. Nah, Twilight, it's alright. You have every right to ask. I mean, I'd usually say no effing it were anybody else asking for this so soon, but, well, we've known each other for, years now. It feels like we've been dating for that long anyhow, it seems. Twilight remained silent for a while more, seemingly considering that concept. Yeah, you're right, Twilight said, her tone expressing realization of it as truth. So, Twilight, I will now accept what you offered me on the hill. I'll accept your offer to make love with me, but first let's finish eating. So, you use a dildo, huh, Twilight? Applejack asked, giving a nervous chuckle, not entirely sure what to say as they now lay together on Twilight's extremely soft bed, anticipating what was soon to come. Well, yes, I do use a dildo in and out of my heats, and not the small one I use as a filly. Twilight answered with a blush. What the fuck? Twilight answered with a blush. Before considering Applejack's nervousness over the subject, Applejack, why don't you take your own advice? Twilight asked, giving a confiding smile. Just think about this. Does this feel right to you? I mean, if it doesn't, we don't have to go any further until you're really ready. Do you trust me? As Applejack looked down to Twilight's hoof on her own, with her apparently having subconsciously grasped it and tightened her grip on it a bit. Yeah, Twilight, I trust you with my life, and I gotta say, this does feel right to me. I've been your friend for many years now, and I know you wouldn't make me do nothing I wouldn't want to, Applejack said, already having agreed to the idea before suddenly drawing a blank. So what exactly do we do now? Applejack asked. She knew how this sort of thing worked between stallions and mares, but hadn't even considered before agreeing that she had no idea how mares coupled. Well, I don't really know much myself, but I did read this romance book with 2 mares for some more unconventional research in dating a mare. One of rarities, but anyways, first they started kissing, and one used a hoof on the other, and then after they used your muzzles and tongues to engage in cunnilingus simultaneously with their muzzles between each other's legs. Okay, sorry if that voice bothered you. Just happens sometimes. What now? Cunnilingus. It's like using your mouth to please a female's mons, pubis, and vaginal opening. Oh, okay, so just blowjob technically. Try speak normal, please. It's when a pony licks a mare's, well, between her legs. Ah, makes sense. Weird sounding, but makes sense, I guess. Alright, great, Twilight said, softly clapping her hooves together in the same manner as many ponies would paw at the ground, showing her own nerves on the prospect, deciding to set the mood, or at least try to. Twilight closed the curtains. Only a sliver of light got in, and lit a few candles. She brought up with them. Before then going to Applejack and meeting her muzzle to hers, kissing her softly as Applejack reclined on the bed, letting Twilight overtake her this time. They continued kissing more for a while, getting only a bit rougher before Twilight broke it and spoke in. So, do you still want to? Yep. I love you. I love you too. Let's do this, I guess. Applejack squirmed a bit as Twilight lay down next to her, and she did. Applejack gently held her hoof with her own. She then started guiding her hoof down her body, starting at her muscular neck, then down her chest, her lean belly and toned stifle. When she eagerly lifted now, leaving Twilight's hoof resting on her small teats, Twilight could feel her nipples under the fur harden in her arousal and took the opportunity to give them a soft rub. Applejack squeezed a bit tighter on her Twilight's cannon with her hoof, and new sensations rolling through her at the feeling of another touching her like this. Applejack squeezed a bit tighter on Twilight's cannon with her hoof, new sensations running through her at the feeling of another touching her like this. Finding herself helping to guide the rubs now, after a few moments of rubbing her teeth, she guided Twilight's hoof lower before letting go and leaving it on her pelvis. Leaving her short of her now moistened marehood, Twilight just stayed still looking at her hoof on the mare's pelvis, reeling from the fact that this was actually happening. Background noises are pissing me off right now. It's okay, Twilight. I want this too. That's snapping her out of her trance and taking a deep breath. Twilight lowered the hoof, feeling warm, lightly swollen, slippery flesh under her hoof. It felt much like another part of Applejack, just warmer, smoother, and much more slippery. Applejack bucked her hips on reflex as Twilight's hoof rubbed over her clitoral on the way down, letting out a quiet gasp at the feeling it caused her, her clit winking on reflex to the stimulation. It felt much like she used her own hoof to temporarily stop her heats burning, but much better for some reason. Even at the first intimate touch she had ever gotten from another, Applejack knew she wanted more. Twi, you can keep going, Applejack said encouragingly, finding she indeed rather loved the feeling of her mare friend rubbing her there. Getting a positive reaction, Twilight nodded and continued to slowly rub Applejack's snatch, the farm mare closing her eyes as her head lowered back, letting her hips softly grind her slit against the hoof, pleasing her. This felt way better than she thought it would, her pleasure coasting along and her body leaving Twilight's hoof quite moist in the process. Wow, you're really liking this, aren't you, Applejack? Twilight asked as she continued to slowly rub for a while, not oblivious to just how wet her hoof was getting. With each rub making her hoof grow more soaked with earth pony nectar, Applejack didn't respond. In another world, it would seem even her body to slowly rock on an instinct against what was pleasing her, and each rub over her clit making her squirm slightly. Oh, Twi, I wish we'd done this when you were first asked, Applejack said in a wispy tone Twilight had never heard from her, encouraging her to keep rubbing more and a bit harder, and getting more pleasured sounds from her mare and longtime friend. After a few more minutes, when Twilight curved her hoof upward and started focusing more and more often on the little pleasure nub and making it wink frequently, Applejack felt a tightness welling up in her belly, a tightness she knew all too well. Twilight, I'm gonna finish soon, Applejack warned, only to feel the rubbing increase even more. Her stifles closing on the hoof between them, letting her rub into herself more aggressively on the now trapped limb. It's okay, AJ, just let it out. Suddenly, after a few more glances, stars danced before AJ's eyes as a wave of euphoria overtook her. A quiet oof escaping her muzzle as her grinds became more forceful, her back arching forward and her powerful back legs gripping Twilight's forelegs tightly enough to make it almost go completely numb. Twilight meanwhile felt her hoof get much more wet now as her mare friend clearly came to her, feeling the warm release spreading as Applejack had started grinding along the whole lower portion of her leg now, her snatch weakening against her clit rubbing against her now slick fur with each and sending more ecstasy through the farm mare. Twilight met her muzzle with Applejack's and felt her push back against her kiss with a force in her moment of climax, letting her lips be an anchor for the pure bliss Applejack was likely feeling to keep her grounded in this world. After a few precious seconds of pure ecstasy, Applejack fell limp as she was held against Twilight's warm body, shivering lightly as the last pangs of pleasure rolled through her. Her stifles grip on her hoof loosened now, if not by much. They simply lay there like that for a while, with Applejack recovering from her first orgasm in what felt like forever, and Twilight ever so gently rubbing over her mare friend's now very wet flower as Applejack caught her breath, still kissing each other softly all the while. After Twilight stopped rubbing her altogether and broke the kiss, Applejack went limp, not having felt this relaxed since she was a filly. She usually had somewhere to go, some pony to meet, but now she didn't have a care in the world, just floating out in that little cloud Twilight had brought her to. Wow, Twi. That was real nice. Applejack said in a deeper tone, her eyes hooded as she looked up to the purple unicorn. You wanna turn? I ain't never done this for another mare, but it's only fair. Twilight was more than ready for something, having been using her magic to tend to herself while she rode Applejack, but not anywhere near satisfied. Twilight nodded as her hoof left the warm, supple lips, a string of off-white femcum, connecting them briefly before finally snapping. That cunny it's where we use our muscles on each other, right? Yep, cunnings. You got it, sugar. Lead the way. But then both of them lay down, Twilight gliding them into proper position as well as she could, with her muzzle ending up between Applejack's stifles and Applejack's between Twilight's. So what? We just start licking. Applejack gasped, only to give a muffled, surprised yelp when Twilight instantly pressed her muzzle against her still sensitive sex, feeling a warm, slimy softness pushing just before her lower lips. Oh, Twilight, feels kinda weird, Applejack said, but the way she eagerly pushed her hips forward, pushing Twilight's muzzle harder into her puffy slit, spoke volumes about how she felt about the more intense tingles it was causing her. Deciding she couldn't be unfair, Applejack started to unsteadily lap at the wet slit before her muzzle, her first few licks teasing her outer lips, with her basically following Twilight's lead in what to do. That feels really good, actually, Twilight commented in a muffled tone, shifting herself and opening her legs a bit more, making herself more accessible to her pleaser, and giving a soft shudder at the sensations that felt like her hoof, but much better. The warm muscle squirming against her lower lips, while her other senses were assaulted by the flavor and scent of a very aroused mare. Quite the lovely sensation. You okay, Applejack? Twilight asked a few moments of soft licking later, noticing Applejack had gotten absolutely soaked in that time. A nod from him, the name of the mare. Do you want me to attempt a penetration? Another nod more vigorous with consent given. Twilight pushed against the lips of her lover and heard a sharp inhale as she easily slid between the very eager petals. Applejack giving a quick series of winks at the new sensation, letting the tongue deeper to feel the velvety sensation of entrance. Applejack quickly followed suit, earning a moan as they moved in, both starting to properly eat each other out. Applejack was right. The tongue squirming inside her now did feel weird and slippery, but at the same time absolutely wonderful. Twilight couldn't help as her vulva winked into the licks. Pleasure sounds now streaming from both as it licked and sucked with both lost to each other's tongues. Now they kept on what felt like forever, their bodies squirming against each other, hot breath and tongues setting the mares ablaze with pleasure. But it wasn't long after that before Applejack started trembling again, apparently getting closer to her second release, unsurprisingly since she was still very sensitive from her earlier orgasm. She wanted Applejack to comfort her again before she reached her own orgasm, and so Twilight curved her tongue sharply upward, as one of the mares had done in the book she'd read. And remembering how the other mare had reacted in the story as she did, she suddenly felt Applejack tense up, a very pleased moan coming from her as she suddenly came again. She started rocking her hips against the source of her pleasure as she did, releasing more of her thick mare honey and squeezing down on the tongue now rubbing her G-spot, more intense pleasure than before rolling throughout her whole body. Even through her orgasm, however, Applejack determinedly continued lapping at Twilight's slit, wanting her mare friend to feel the pleasure she had given to her twice already, targeting the small heart-shaped knob at the top and suckling softly on it. Knowing how much she liked to touch it when she pleasured herself, it wasn't long enough after she focused on licking and sucking that sensitive bulb before Twilight started to tremble, much like she had, her stifle squeezing around Applejack's head tightly as she suddenly tensed up. Twilight climaxed with a brief cry, her body quaking, her head back and eyes sealed. As anything close to that thought was overtaken by a white-hot wave of pleasure, her hips rolled on instinct against Applejack's muzzle as intense tingles, way better than even her dildo could provide, shot through her. The feeling of something warm and wet and moving inside of her during her squeezes better than she could have ever imagined. Applejack left her tongue deep inside Twilight as she felt her squirm and writhe in her orgasm, letting her inner walls milk and squeeze against it before all too soon she relaxed and released her head, spent completely. Both simply lay their days, panting as their afterglows settled in, with Applejack crawling up next to her mate so they could lay together. Twilight in turn met her lips with Applejack as soon as she could, sharing a kiss as their flavors mixed together, tasting their own cum on each other. It wasn't as bad tasting as either thought it would be, indeed tasting kind of salty and fruity. That was amazing, Twilight stammered out, getting an agreeing nod from Applejack. You're darn right it was. I'm glad you were my first, Twilight. I'm glad you were my first too. Silence for a while, save further quiet breath and some shifting. Hey, Twilight, ain't it kind of unfair that I got to finish tries and you didn't? Applejack asked and giving a quite suggestive look. Should I remedy that? Should I remedy that? Twilight gave an equally lascivious look in return before nodding. Applejack squirming and going back behind her. Twilight spread her hind legs again as she lay on her back now, soon after giving a moan as Applejack sealed her lips and her marehood now, holding her hindquarters in either hoof as her tongue plunged deep once more. Bye, Celestia, I love you, Applejack, Twilight cooed, reaching down to rub Applejack's ears as she was pleased once more. Best day off ever. The end. Anyways, guys, sorry if I read too fast. I got things to do and I gotta go really fast. You know, gotta be Sonic right out here. Anyways, my last part was kind of like unfair. If you guys didn't hear it, this is why I always leave the link in the description so you guys can go read it by yourself if you want to. So, it's been chapter 3 of Days Off. Anyways, sorry about the noise in the background if you guys could hear it, because I'm a little bit salty about that. Anyways, goodbye. 100,000 stories have filled my head.